Hi, my name is Dan Carmody, and I'm the Executive Director of Tresolution. And in this episode of Fintech Intellects, I have Trupti Natu with us today. Now, Trupti is the head of disbursement risk at Uber, and she has a lot of really interesting perspectives and thoughts when it comes to the fintech industry. So welcome, Trupti, in joining us today.
Thank you. Looking forward to this.
So now, Trupti, you're the head of disbursement risk at Uber. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah, I actually took over this title or this job function, so to speak, recently, last October. It's interesting because it's all things risk across Uber. We have multiple lines of businesses. We have Eats, we have Rides, we have Freight, and so on. But on the disbursement side, which is when the rubber really hits the road, if I were to say it that way, because this is when Uber's bank account, money is going out of Uber's bank account to all of our partners. So our restaurant partners, our courier partners, our driver partners, and it's small invoices, big invoices, and so on. And as we know, there are always bad actors trying to game the system or exploit loopholes. And so if you didn't earn the money on the platform, but we are dispersing, so to speak, that money, then that's a problem. That directly hits our bottom line. And that's what we want to stop.
So that's fascinating. It sounds like a really critical job that Uber has you working in there. Now, you mentioned that you just started this job, what was it, October? What were you doing before then? Were you with Uber?
Yeah, so I've been with Uber. That's a great question. I've been with Uber for over 3 years now. I started as a founding member of Uber Eats Risk, and Eats was at the best state, in my opinion, when I started, which was nascent, still startup-y, very hustly, but Uber was stable enough. Like the rides business was stable enough, so it was like a nice startup nestled inside a known home and like an established, stable home. And so yeah, I started with the risk for Uber Eats, and I was doing that up until last October, and then my scope expanded to across lines of businesses, but more focused on disbursement.
So it sounds just by your description that you really like the startup phase. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it. I like the 0 to 1 space. I like the challenge of building something new and being a little bit hustly there, being a little bit not knowing and having that creative freedom to have your own stamp on it. So yeah, I thrive in that environment, and that was perfect for me. And when I first started with Uber.
So it's my understanding with smaller organizations, especially on the startup side, you have to bring a lot of hats to the table, if you will, right? So not only are you bringing in this risk management hat, but I presume that you were being asked to do other things from a strategy perspective. Is that true?
That is accurate, and I think that's what appeals to me, to be honest. Like when you ask me about like why you seem to gravitate towards startup, like 0 to 1, then yes, I think that's what a lot of people are probably not comfortable. They want to know exactly their job description and what their boundaries are. I'm the opposite. I like the gray areas there where you have room to play multiple roles. So you're absolutely right. By starting up, I was playing multiple roles and wearing different hats. It wasn't necessarily analytics. It wasn't necessarily data science. Sometimes you have to like collaborate with ops people, sit with stakeholders, collaborate with engineers a lot, and like figure out where the bugs are in our system and so on. Do your deliveries yourself, be the eater on one side and see what is going on, what drives you to ask for a refund, when you charge back, what happens, what is your experience, and so on. So it was interesting, but I learned a lot actually, and that the people I was collaborating with were also great and the best at their job, so to speak. So that also makes you bring your A game to the table, and everyone benefits from that. So it was just an incredible experience.
So you're currently working as the head of disbursement risk at Uber, which is a high strategy position. I'm sure very critical. How did you get to this point? Now I know obviously through our discussions and your LinkedIn profile, you have a master's degree from Carnegie Mellon University in information systems. So can you tell us a little bit about that path from Carnegie Mellon to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I have been somehow my entire career has been in the fintech space. So after CMU, I was at this boutique consulting firm called Argus Information. So they did credit card. They still do actually credit card benchmarking and credit card data insights. So that's where I first, believe it or not, got hooked into. And this is a very niche space, as you know yourself, being in so deep into this space. Either you like it or you don't. It could be very boring and mathematical and all that for some people. I just absolutely loved it. And somehow I'm grateful enough that my career kept having those links in its in my future roles as well. So from credit cards, it was gift cards with Amazon and so on. Risk is kind of part of fintech. When you have money moving, there is an element, there's a huge element of risk. I just had personally never worked in risk per se, even though these are always sister teams and goes hand in hand. And so when Uber came to me with this opportunity, I like to always say it's kind of like a pun. It's like Uber took a risk on me and I took a risk with like going into risk. Mm-hmm. But it just worked out because if you look at it today, with everything going way more digital and so risk and privacy and security, trust and safety, PII data, all of that, cybersecurity included, becomes so much central to any business that I'm just lucky to where I'm at. But there was no, if you're asking, there was no a conscious effort. It's just like one thing led to another, and somehow I found my way back into fintech and got deeper into it.
Sure, but you have experience within large organizations, and you've worked with American Express and eBay and Amazon prior to Uber. That's correct?
Amazon was in 2014. So actually, that's how that was my first taste into the tech world, so to speak. So Amazon moved me from New York, which I still like, and it was a hard decision, but I think it was the right decision. I have a CS undergrad, so I guess I gravitated towards tech anyways, and I wanted to be with the like-minded people. So I'm very grateful that I did that move. So yeah, I moved into tech with Amazon.
Nice. Have you noticed that your leadership style has changed or evolved over the years? And if so, what do you think some of those main catalysts are for that evolution?
That's actually a great question. So I have managed before Uber, but it's so different. I feel like Uber, I always say, is a very different, maybe it's the times that we're in, or it's the startup-y culture that we still have. It's great though. I started with Uber as an IC, and I'm grateful for that because when I had a team, I knew exactly how to coach them, being lived that life. And that's a good way to earn respect and trust from your team members as well. I mean, there are other ways too, but at least in today's day and age, when everyone and the kind of people that we attract at Uber are like very entrepreneurial spirit and like very type A and builders and go-getters and things like that, which is great. But it's also that means they need to earn, you need to earn their trust in order for them to fully be comfortable with you and respect you and so on. So I'm not like making a blanket statement, but I feel like that helped me a lot, getting my hands dirty and going into the weeds and then taking a step back to guide them. So in that way, to answer your question, I would say my leadership style has changed in the sense that I would rather like to get to know as much as possible how I would do it, so I can better coach my team members. The other thing I would say is, this is not just Uber, but in general, I feel like getting to know your team members and in general, um, breaking that ice beyond just like offsites and things like that is when you're really going to understand what's in it for them and how you can better coach these folks to get to the next level and challenge them. Like I always like to say, if you always give what they want, that's one way to do it, but you have to, that may not be a challenging opportunity for them. So convincing them what they probably first came up to you saying that this is not what I wanted to do is where your real skills come into picture.
Sure. I mean, that sounds really similar to what you mentioned earlier in our talk here, where you said you took a risk on Uber, but Uber took a risk on you. So you were both probably seeing something that each other hadn't seen and realized something bigger and greater because of that.
That's a good way you kind of summed it up. Yeah, I wouldn't have. Yeah, that's nice.
So let's talk a little bit about politics in general within corporations, right? Do you have any tips or strategies on how to handle inner office politics?
My advice is observe it and be mindful of it so you're not blindsided, but try to not get involved or don't be the genesis of it. Don't be that the starter of it. That's one way to do it. And one of my mentor has always said, and I really like that principle, which is customer, company, team, and then self. If you go by that mantra, then no matter what decisions you're making, at least you know what framework you're using. And what happens most times with politics is people put themselves first, then their team, and it's always the us versus them factor and things like that. If you always drive your decisions and question your decisions as to, is this good for the customer? Then is it good for our company? Then the team and the self last, then I think you will continue making good decisions. And the other thing I would say is transparency. If you have a transparent and honest style, I think you will people will gravitate towards that style, and you will win regardless in the long game. Play the long game.
I mean, it sounds like really innovative advice. And you mentioned that your mentor taught that to you. Can you tell us a little bit about the roles that mentors have played throughout your career path?
So I have one that I always followed his advice. I got at Amazon, who was just leaving the team. Some of my managers or managers' peers have been really good mentors that I still seek advice. But the best mentor-mentee relationship is where what happens organically. You just see someone doing, going at it or being at a certain position, and you're like, I would love to be there, or I would love how this person conducts themselves in meetings, or what they have done with their career or talent, how they handle their team, so on. Whatever attracts you to that persona, so to speak. And I think if it clicks, then those are the mentors that you will have for lifelong.
That's great. So let's talk about younger professionals, maybe students that are in undergrad or in graduate school that are looking to enter into the fintech field. What advice would you have for them if they wanted to get more involved in a fintech company?
There's a lot of disruptive fintechs and opportunities out there, but if it doesn't speak to you, it's like math or stats or CS or something else, economics. Don't force yourself just because, oh, fintech is hot right now and every other startup is getting funded. That's good, but you won't go that far if it's not coming, if it just doesn't speak to you. But if it does, don't shy away and think, oh, I want to do something else because this looks very back-endy and it's just stats, and at the end of the day, it's like P&L. Just give it a try. It takes a while, but once you try it, if you like it, stick with it and you'll be successful.
Yeah, and one of the observations that I've seen in the industry is it's not just purely technical. There's a lot of creative-minded people in fintech, whether it be from the marketing side or business development side. So they're not all finance-oriented people or CS-oriented people behind the scenes doing all of the coding. You have a lot of front-end creative minds that are in the industry also pushing it forward. That's at least been my observation.
That well said. I think that's a great observation. Actually, you're absolutely right. I think you can be working for something like Venmo. Think about what they did with just emojis, and it became such a big. So you could be a designer there, and it's still part of fintech, and you're still trying to create that awareness. But it has nothing to do with the math or what we kind of associate with it. So yeah, that's a great observation. Sure. There's something for everybody in there.
Yeah, it's definitely an ecosystem in the sense that it's greater than just finance and technology, even though that's the genesis of the fintech name, if you will. So let's talk about that a little bit more. I'd love to hear your opinions about the current state of fintech. What do you think is exciting now? Where do you think the greatest innovations are happening now in fintech?
Now that I might be slightly biased now that I'm into disbursement, but I feel like disbursement hasn't been disrupted as much as acceptance side of things. Now this might sound like jargons, but if you think about a marketplace to a lot of non-fintech people, but if you think about a marketplace, initially all the disruption or the focus was how do I get the money from my end customers? So there was a lot of like, oh, we accept credit cards. Oh, we accept One Touch. We accept Apple Pay. Now we also have added Google Pay. Amazon was trying to get into that space and so on. So there's enough there. And obviously I can see why. But now as things are going more global, there's the gig economy side of things, and you could have a startup or even a medium-sized business where you have a designer sitting somewhere in Korea. You have a CS, your engineering team is somewhere in, say, Philippines or Japan, different places basically. So you have to pay them somewhere or another anyways, right? So that's where the disbursement side of things comes in. So global invoices and things like that. So that part of thing hasn't been disruptive enough as much as acceptance. So that's one area. I feel like there will be a lot of innovation coming, especially as we are going more and more global and having gig and short-term work and so on.
Yeah, I think the payment space is terribly innovative now, and there's a lot of competitors trying to look at a bunch of different payment rails in addition to the whole crypto space. If you bring that on board, there's just a ton of innovation happening across the scenes there. So I agree with you. I think on the disbursement side, there's a lot of innovation happening there and a lot of disruption that will be happening in the near future.
There is definitely opportunity to make it more regulated, invoicing, reporting, maybe some promos, the gamut of things if they start becoming their independent. Yeah, so there's a lot happening there.
So let's be a little bit more forward focused now. We were just talking about sort of the current fintech space. Let's put on let's look into the future, 5 and 10, maybe 15 years out. What does that environment look to you? Are there big macro areas that you would focus on, or that you personally are interested in pursuing? Can you speak to that to any degree?
Oh wow. I think I know crypto and all that comes a lot to mind, but that was also, if you think about it, a few years back, and maybe now is its time to shine. So that might happen. We might start paying a lot more with crypto, and a lot more encrypted. So that might become mainstream.
I mean, it sounds like that's one of the areas why I like this space, and I know you like this space, is because of the innovations that are consistently happening here. So, and you know, this has been a really great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time to sort of walk us through your career path and your opinions on fintech and where it is and where it might be going. I know that you're a speaker at the upcoming U.S. FinTech Symposium, so just if this is any preview of the content and quality of the knowledge that you're bringing to the table, I really can't wait to see that presentation in person. So Trupti, thank you so much for your time and joining me today in this conversation. And I hope you have a great day. Thanks so much.
Thank you for the great questions, and thank you for the opportunity. Thanks.
My pleasure. Take care.
Take care.